Hi, welcome to SE Scholars Class 1, Understanding the INCOSE Certification Process. Um, I'm Paul Martin. I'll be your guide on this adventure. What we're going to do for this webinar is just talk about what is system engineering, what is INCOSE, what is this whole CEP process, certification and the process to get it, and what are some of the key requirements for the certification. I'm Paul Martin. I'm an ESEP. Been an ESEP since 2012. Prior to that, for about 5 years, I was a CSEP. I've been an engineer since the late 70s, a product engineer for General Electric, a system engineer for NAVSEA, NEMA, and Army and DoD. Been doing this a long time. I'm also UMBC, that's the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, adjunct professor where I teach system engineering. And I'm involved in our local INCOSE Chesapeake chapter. I've been teaching a INCOSE CEP exam preparation course since 2009. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students. Just a few years ago, I started SE Scholar. The whole idea of the company is to help system engineers get their CEP certification no matter where they are, make it affordable, give them high quality instruction no matter where they work. So hopefully you'll see that that's the case when you look through the offerings I have for SE Scholar. Not only am I involved in INCOSE, I'm a member of IEEE as well. And IEEE had this great Spectrum article years and years ago called What's Wrong with Weapons Acquisition. Of course, I worked in NAVSEA. I was part of the acquisition workforce. I had DWEA level 5 for system engineer, level 3 for system engineering. So I was very interested in this article. And when I started reading it, I found this one paragraph that succinctly made it clear what a system engineer does. So let me read this to you. It says, another factor contributing to program failure is the shortage of technically trained people, especially system engineers. Now, a system engineer translates technical needs into the overall system architecture that creates the best operational capability at the most affordable cost. But as a project proceeds and goals or needs shift, system engineers have to determine the difficult but necessary cost, schedule, and performance trade-off to keep everything on track. So they work with the program manager who's concerned about cost and schedule. You come in worried about performance, but also within that cost and schedule constraint. It's easy to come up with a solution, I always say, but man, try to come up with a solution that costs so much and has to be done at this time frame. That becomes creativity, and that becomes system engineering at its essence. So as the article finished up, it said as the programs get bigger and more complex, the need for rigorous system engineering only increases. So great understanding of why we need system engineering. Around that same time frame as that article came out, system engineering became job #1 for CNNmoney.com. Of course, this was years and years ago, but it was great that they mentioned the INCOSE CSEP prerequisite for that, but it was kind of neat. By the way, that same year, being a professor was #3, so I got 2 out of the 3. That was pretty nice. Now, our president, our previous president, John Thomas, did this great article called Why System Engineers Are Essential to Your Organization. And what he said, that across organization products and services, system engineers also provide that critical leadership for integrating technical activities. They have the skills to influence multidisciplinary teams to reach a consensus on how a system solution should come together. As problem solvers, they focus on outcome, not process. And I have to agree with that. If your process isn't giving you value, why are you even consider it? Your processes should be providing you a quality outcome every single time they're used. Now, that's system engineering kind of in a nutshell. What is INCOSE? INCOSE is the International Council of System Engineering. It's a nonprofit member organization that was founded back in 1990. And the whole idea was to develop and disseminate the interdisciplinary principles and practices that enable the realization of a successful system. In other words, disseminate system engineering principles. So their mission is to share and promote and advance the best system engineering across the globe for the benefit of humanity and the planet. It makes you want to hug a tree. But anyway, it really is important that us as system engineers, we're impacting the reality of the world. There's a lot of man-made stuff out there, and the way that stuff is made and the impact it has on the environment, impact it has on people's lives are important. And that's why system engineering and INCOSE is really trying to push proper system engineering. So their vision is to become a world's authority on system engineering. If you ever read a paper on system engineering and they have to define system engineering, guess where they'll go? INCOSE. INCOSE has their definition there in the handbook, and people will extract it and use it. Pretty much makes them an authority on system engineering. But they do more than, we'll talk more about the handbook, but system engineering, INCOSE has several products that they are very proud of. One, they do an annual INCOSE International Symposium. It's in July. As a matter of fact, I believe this year, 2016, they're having it in Scotland. The year before, they were over in Vegas, I believe. So they usually travel all around the United States as well as in other countries because they are international. They have a journal for system engineering that they also publish that has all articles that deal with scholarly articles dealing with system engineering. Insight magazine, which is kind of nice in terms of what's happening with INCOSE and local chapters. There's a system engineering body of knowledge, or SEBOC. They work in conjunction with IEEE. It's a great resource. If you ever want to learn about maybe one aspect of system engineering, they're bound to have a chapter that deals with it. They worked with the OMG System Modeling Language, or SysML. OMG, Object Modeling Group, they came up with the Unified Modeling Language, UML. And SysML is kind of an extension to that. That allows system engineers to use object-oriented type concepts. And the one thing, excuse me, that you'd be interested in is INCOSE's System Engineering Handbook as well. And I'll explain to you about that. Now, one of the primary products they have, and hopefully one of the reasons why you signed up for this free video to see what INCOSE is all about, is their certification program. And they do have a multi-level professional system engineering professional certification program. It's a formal method where they recognize what knowledge and experience you have as a system engineer. And it's a great way to differentiate where you are in your career. It has been developed in such a way that the system engineering community has embraced it. Professionals have applied and are getting the certification. And organizations and institutes realize, wow, if we have certified system engineers, then that makes our certification for certain other certifications for organization level make more sense. So I'm going to actually show you that. They've been doing this since 2004. INCOSE has been around since 1990, but it wasn't until 2001, 2002 that the members said, look, we want to have a certification program like all those other organizations that, like PMI, they do PMP. Why can't we have something similar? So they did. But you have to realize this isn't a certificate. I mean, I could give you a certificate for watching my video here, right? Hey, you watched my video. You completed it. And it's not a license that's formal permission from the state to do some kind of business or something. No, a certification is kind of a confirmation of your competency. What is your education, experience, and knowledge in a specific profession? And for our case, it's system engineering. And this is very formal, issued by an organization, INCOSE, and it's voluntary. It's not something that should bar you from entering a job, but it can be, however, a qualifier. So that's something to think about. Think about other professional societies out there. PMI has over 600,000 members, and almost 400,000 of them are PMP or certified in some way, shape, or form. PMP is their program management. They have a project or a program. They have a project management, program management professional. They have a certified associate, and they have an agile certified practitioner. There's an International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium, or ISC squared, and they actually have a CISSP certification, system security professional thing that occurs. So that's another certification that people look for. Even IEEE has their certified software development professional that's out there. So when you look at INCOSE, what they've come up with, they have the base, the entry level, ESEP. From there, you get to a foundation level, which is kind of CSEP. Been doing system engineer for several years, get that certification. And then 25 years later, you can get your ESEP, a senior level. And all these show what levels of leadership and accomplishments and experience that you in your profession that you've had. So it's multi-level, every stage of your career. Why is it important? Organizations love it because it actually recognizes their employees who are system engineers, what kind of capabilities they have. And they can actually use this because this is independent from them. They can make that a discriminator for some of their proposals that they may put out and say, look, we have these many system engineers that are certified. So it's a great tool for them from a marketing perspective. And it sets the organization apart. Now, an organization has this thing that they're worried about. Here, let me go to, it focuses on the people. Let me go here. An organization can have like ISO 9000. That kind of shows that they have quality as an aspect of what they do. Or ISO 15504, they're worried about the environment, or CMMI. So the whole point there is the organization, CMMI, by the way, is capability, maturity, model integrated. So that just shows that they have a model for a certain capability. But that's at organization level. What certification does is it changes the focus to the individual. Do they have an ASEP, CSEP, ESEP, or a PMP, PMI type thing, or a CSEP? Those are the type of certifications an organization can use and look at, and it focuses on the people's involvement within the organization certifications. It just makes it work that much better. Now, for an individual, you're being recognized for your system engineering capabilities, and it provides a discriminator and job acumen. You can imagine, oh, I've got 2 system engineers. They all have 8 years experience. Wait, this one's certified and this one's not. So I'm sure it will come into play if you have very similar people vying for the same job. And it's portable. You don't have to use it. It's not a certification you get from your company, because when you leave your company, that certification stays there. But this is portable. You can bring it to whatever domain or whatever company that you're working with. And it sets you apart. Now, it works for teams. It's a great way to establish common system engineering language. And, if you have graphical boundaries, organizational boundaries, cultural boundaries, this is a great way to kind of break them down and help your teams work together. So it's a great, useful way for helping distributed teams. So how do you leverage this? Individuals get recognized. Organizations have ways to have a proposal discriminator and even qualify suppliers perhaps. So there's ways you can leverage this both individually and organizationally. This is kind of older. It's about a year old, but it does show that our CEPs are growing. We have about 2,300. Like I said, PMI, they have about 400,000. So we're a drop in the bucket, but we're getting more and more traction as we go along. So the certificate program has been experiencing growth since 2004, and it's only getting bigger. There are several agreements out there. You may want to look on this list and see if your company is part of it. You should go on the website and check it out at incose.org and see if your company's here. It does make a difference. If you do have an agreement, you may actually have a cheaper way to go about getting your certification. The CEP aligns with typical career things. You can actually jump in wherever you are. I mean, if you're an older system engineer who's been doing this for 30 years, maybe the ESEP you want to go with. But if you're 5 to 15 years into it, a CSEP makes sense. Come out of college and you only have 2 or 3 years, ESEP would make sense. Now, of course, it's a ladder. You could come out of college, get your ESEP, 5 years down the road, get your CSEP, 15 years after that, get your ESEP. So wherever you are, you can either enter it where it makes sense or climb the ladder if you're starting at the very beginning. ESEP is kind of entry level. It's targeted at people just graduating, has limited system engineering work experience, but they know they want to stay within this profession. And all they have to do is put their name in, become an INCOSE member, pass the test, boom, they're good to go for about 5 years. Now they have to renew it. If they don't have the experience and their application isn't accepted, they can renew with the PDUs every 5 years. But after 3 times of doing that, 15 years, INCOSE is like fish or cut bait. If you're not going to become a CSEP, please. So that's been around a while. Here's the process again. You just put in your application, submit it, get notified, you pay the test fee, you study the whole time, you take the test, and within 2 weeks you'll actually get your 5-year certification. The foundation level, which a lot of you will probably be going after, is your CSEP. That's for 5 or more years of experience. You have to kind of show and certify that you do have that experience. Education and knowledge experience is work-related references have to be involved. So you do need to have some references. Your knowledge, again, just like the ESEP, you have to pass the exam that's based on the handbook. You do need to be a member of INCOSE in order to get the certificate. And it renews every 3 years, not 5. So every 3 years you have to have enough PDUs, professional development units, to get renewed. And there are about 120 that you need. So once you get the certificate, please start working on your PDUs as fast as you can. There are 2 options. One is the review first option. That's like I put in my application. They look at it. They get all the reference material. They find everything's fine. They they let you know your application's good, now go take the test, and then you take the test, pass it, become certified at that point. This is a very long process to do it this way. The problem is that I had a friend at work who tried this. It took him almost a year because of the back and forth he was doing as he's trying to get his references in. And he almost didn't make as you can see, you have up to a year to pass the test. He almost didn't meet that. It's much better to go with this one, which is the exam first. It's like you fill out your part of the application, ask your references to do their part, but as your application gets in, INCOSE looks at it and says, yeah, it's got everything we need, we're waiting for the references, but why don't you go ahead and take the exam? That way you can have the exam finished probably a lot faster than the references and everything that comes in. So doing it in parallel. I suggest you click exam first, just so that you can get the exam done and out of the way. ESEP is a little different. It's targeted at system engineering leaders. They should have some kind of systems accomplishments and have at least 20 to 25 years of work experience. They have to substantiate their professional leadership and accomplishments through references. They usually get some phone calls. You have to go back 10 years, and interviews will occur between you as well as your references. And you have to remain an INCOSE member this whole time. There's no renewal requirements, no PDUs, no tests you have to take. It is a nice way to go if you can work this way. And here's the application process. This because you don't have the exam, you have to get your application and references in, and then they'll make a phone call, and then you have to verify through your oral review that your application and your references, at least 2 of the references, will receive a phone call as well. And if all that looks good, boom, you've got your ESEP pen. There are some key requirements here. As you can see, the requirements actually come in threes. When it comes to the ESEP, they just want to know your knowledge is there and your education. When it comes to the CSEP, they want your experience, your education, and your knowledge. When it comes to the ESEP, it's your leadership, experience, and education. So as you can see, they each have different keys to make this work. So let's look at these measurable things. One is education. You need a technical bachelor's degree or an international equivalent. It has to be an acceptable field of study like aerodynamics, environmental, mechanical, nuclear systems, software. You could do other fields of studies like chemistry, mathematics, and physics. That's fine. If you have a degree that doesn't come in that above field, you should maybe contact them, or if you have a master's or doctorate degree in the fields, that's fine. You don't have to contact them. But you should contact, if you have a bachelor's in some obscure field that you feel is technical, please contact INCOSE and they'll let you know if it's good or not. Now, if you don't have a technical degree, let's say you have just a non-technical degree on English or something, or liberal arts or history. Okay, you're doing system engineering, but maybe instead of 5 years, we'll look at 10 years in order to get your CSEP. And if you have no bachelor's degree whatsoever, then they want to see at least 15 years of experience for the CSEP. So you're just adding experience in order for you to get the certification. So don't let the lack of a diploma prevent you from going after this certification. The other thing is experience. This gets a little more difficult. This is where the applications, and I believe a lot of applicants, when they fill out the application, they misjudge how much time this takes. So there are 14 functional areas. A lot of this is, and I'll show you in the next slide or two, in Appendix A of the application. So you get the application instructions, and Appendix A has all 14 functional areas described. Now they're in groups. One is technical competencies. They want to know, have you done requirements engineering, design development, system integration, or the testing area like qualification, verification, or validation. Any of those are from a technical standpoint. The other one is technical management. So that's technical planning, technical effort assessment, risk and opportunity management, or baseline management. If you've done any of those count. The other one is actually supporting system engineering, like are you a specialty engineering, like safety or EMP or something like that. You do EMC, like electromagnetic stuff, or even mass things. You're doing things to support system engineers. They want to know about that. Process definition, training, tool support, or quality assurance. All those are supports within system engineering that qualify as a functional area that you get. And then they have other, you may have some domain that has some weird system engineering aspect to it. Put it down, and let INCOSE look at it and see if it's an apple or not. Now, what you need to do, and what I put here is the attachment A. I read attachment A before you even get started. Read it and understand what each of these functional areas are. And I'll tell you why you need to do that. Here's the first few and here's the last. The reason you need to do that is because you need to kind of you need to pull your experience and put it in these buckets where they go. So you may have something where you're like, oh, I wonder what this is, and you read the definition and it's like, oh, integration. It throws there. And there's some jobs you may have, like it may be architecture, but there's a quality aspect to it, like where does it go? So sometimes you may have to split it up as you work along. So very important that you read the attachment A and understand each of these 14 system engineering disciplines, functional areas. It's what's going to qualify you. So that's why it's important you do this right. So what they're looking for from a system engineering, this is for CSEP, they're looking for 5 years experience, but you have to have 1 year of 3 or more of those functional areas. So that's 12 months and qualification, 12 months in training, and 12 months in requirements engineering. Okay, so that's 12, 12, 12. The last 24 months are up to you. You may expand out on requirements or maybe tool support, whatever. But you need at least 12 of the 3 of these functional areas you have to work in it 12 months or more. And the way to confirm that, you need 3 colleagues, peers, or managers. They all have to be experienced system engineers, and they should cover the areas that you say that you have that thing. So the references have to be knowledgeable in system engineer and kind of show that they understand system engineering. And they document that in their reference form. So you need to show your experience. Here's a good way of looking at it. Let me get my mouse here so you can see it. Basically, you could have 3 jobs you've done. I did quality assurance, I did some CM, and then I did this design thing for 3 years. Okay, well that works. It's 12, 12, 12, and then whatever. Right down here, option X shows you could have 12, 12, 12, and then whatever. You can have 3 months of one, 6 of another, whatever, like you did up here in option 4. So really, you could, they actually like it if you were more like option 3 and below, because it shows not only do you have the 12, 12, 12, but you have experience in some other of the functional areas as well. I'm going to explain how this all works out when we get into our matrix, okay? So you should have experience in some, but not all, system engineering areas. So let's talk a little bit about the application, because that's an important aspect to this. All the material can be found on the website, INCOSE website. Download those forms. You should download the application for CSEP. It's pretty well written. You can read exactly what you need to fill out. You should get the instructions for filling out the CSEP application, the instructions for the letter of reference. That's where you send to your references and say, hey, I'm getting CSEP, can you help me out? You know, and then they fill out this endorsement form that basically says, yes, I'm a system engineer. Yes, I've seen this person do this system engineering stuff, and yes, I endorse them. So that's pretty much up to them. You do need at least 3, so you know, hopefully you haven't burnt your bridges behind you when you left companies and all. All right. I suggest what you do is email whatever your prospect references are. Do at least 5 of them. In the application, you need to explain who the reference is, and you need to get their name, address, phone number, email address, and then what working relationship you have, and then what part of the application position is being covered by the thing. So confirm their interest, confirm that the information that you need for the application. So here's some emails. Actually, if you go into my Canvas website, I put all this in for you to see what that's like. And notice in here, there's aspect to the emails I just have to clarify. A lot of times people say, hey, I'm applying, here's what I wrote, and you put the whole application in there. Now, the problem you have is your reference may say, oh, that's good wording, and they'll put it in their reference. And if INCOSE sees the exact same wording in your application as in the reference, they're not going to be happy. They may even reject it. But they really want the reference to do their own wording. So I suggest you write this email and you rewrite what you said, but do it more personally. Like I said here, you can see what I wrote here. Hey, remember that great time we had where we figured out, what the requirements were for that space age thing we did, whatever it takes. So anyway, the emails are a good idea. Think them through, send them to at least 5 or more of your colleagues, friends, or managers who are system engineers. So you're trying to get this experience go to the matrix. So that's why I'm saying read the attachment and then break up your experience into these positions, and try to use the language that you can that is in Appendix A that makes sense. And then a lot of times what you find is, oh, I'm doing 3 or 4 of these things at the same time, but you are doing them over a period. So let's say you're doing 4 things over 12 months. Well, what was your percentage of time you spent during the first position? Was it 25%? Well, if that's true, then it's 4 months, right? And the others, were they 30%, 5 months, 6? So you can figure out, even though you did them all in 1 year, percentage them and put the accurate amount of time you actually spent on here. So when you look at the application, you'll see you have a position that you fill out, and you have to do a from to time frame. Now I suggest when you do that, put in parentheses how many months that is. The reason you do that is when you go to the matrix, you need to make sure you don't exceed that amount of time. Also, when you actually fill out your position, actually say this is for SE function technical planning, or SE function design process, or something like that, or architecture. And then say these are the amount of months, 13, and 9. And then start describing it. Now, the reason I suggest that is you're going to take these functions and actually put them in the matrix. And so it's important that you actually see here, I have 9 for process definition, 9 for process definition. Now, I had another technical planning I had to add up for position 2. That's why it's 12. But the idea is that you add these up, 24, 4, 9, 4, and it's 41. So it's less than the 43 that I said back here I had, because 2 months I was waiting for my clearance, right? So that makes sense. You transfer, make sure you do this and transfer it correctly into the matrix, and then make sure the matrix is filled out correctly. Now this matrix gets a little tricky because you have to go in here, right click it and say update field so that it will be filled out correctly. This is all done in a Word document. Now also keep in mind, as you're filling this out right here in your positions in this Word document, they made it into a form that doesn't spell check. So I suggest you actually kind of fill out everything separate from this form, and then once you feel comfortable, I've got all my experiences done, copy and paste and put them in there. That way you can make sure your spell check's working and things like that. So just a suggestion to make sure this is done right. Now let's go into what it means to have that knowledge of system engineering, that element that's actually the part where I'm hoping I can help you out with, is understanding the handbook enough in order to pass the exam. So the certification knowledge requirement is you need to pass an exam. It's 2 hours in length, 120 questions. It is all based on the INCOSE System Engineering Handbook version 4, which is, by the way, a free download. I'll explain a little bit more how do you get the handbook if you're an INCOSE member, which you need to be in order to go after this certificate. Certification. So it's administered by this company called Prometrics. They have these computers set up. You go in there, you take the exam, and it's pass or fail. You either make it or not. They'll tell you right away. And they actually give you, if you fail, they'll give you a little sheet of paper that says where you were deficient or not. This is the exact same exam for ESEP as well as is for CSEP. Here, what I wanted to do is give you an example of what these exam questions are like. This is very similar. Mainly what they do is they give you 5, they ask you a question, 3 of the 5 answers are correct. So you have to choose 3. So for instance, you take this one, which of the following are methods that express functional behavior? You look down, network tree, behavioral, allocated, requirements, functional, flow, integrated, definition for functional modeling, or IDEF. So you come through and you go, well, it's looking for functional behavior. We have a behavior diagram here. We've got a functional flow and a functional modeling. So it must be B, E, and F. So through that, you actually figured out a way to actually turned out. This one may have been a little bit more harder, and you would probably had to struggle trying to figure out those last 2. But this shows you this is precisely the way the exam is. Not much more than that, okay? So they may say 1 out of 3 or something like that. There's always 2 wrong answers, no matter where you're going after. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We have some representative exam questions you can check out in INCOSE. You go under their frequently asked questions. They say, look, these are very poor questions, but again, they demonstrate the structure that, again, it's a question and you've got 5 and you have to pick 3, or it's 4 and you have to pick 2 or something like that. How do you get the handbook? The 4th edition, you can buy it from Wiley. That'll get you a hard copy. But don't forget, you can also go to your home page as a member of INCOSE. You go to your profile homepage and you got a digital library there, and you can actually, what you do is you go to the store and you say, I want that free PDF, okay? And so it's over here, as you can see, it's a discount purchase member. Oh, that's the discount. But the soft copy over here is 0 as well. The discount is for you to get a hard copy. So you download this, it goes into your digital library, and you go ahead and say, oh, there it is, and you download it. And so once you download it, you should probably take the PDF to Office Depots or Staples and get it spiral bound. Or spend the $80 or whatever it takes to get the hard copy this way. Either way, you need to get the handbook because you need to read it to get ready. Now, to prepare for it, you read the handbook, of course, but I have an online class where I actually teach the framework of all 31 processes in the book. I give you dozens of quizzes for you to practice on. And at the end, you're like, oh man, I understand system engineering because it's the fundamentals of system engineering that's in the handbook. So I have a really nice web portal for my class. It's on this learning management system called Canvas. You signed up in order to get into this video, and it's the same exact thing, but I'll give you another course, and this one will have all the information you need to learn the handbook. What I do is I got almost over 14 hours of recording where I actually talk about my down here, my process flow, and they're all recorded for you to listen to at your leisure. And I use this comprehensive process flow diagram. It shows all 31 processes interacting with each other. I have plenty of exam-like questions and quizzes. I even have a 125 question practice exam. It's 2 hours long, and you try to practice and see how good you are at it. I have almost over 580 questions that the 120 pull from. So you can take these quizzes time and time again, and they'll be brand new. So again, it's a great way to be comfortable with the exam when you get in there. I do 7 classes. This shows you an example where if you want, you watch 2 videos a week, and within 4 weeks, you'll have all 7 done, and then you can do the practice exam and be ready. So what I suggest what you do is if you have that permission from INCOSE to go and take the exam, go ahead and call Prometrics and put that line in the sand. Call them and say, oh, 4 weeks from now, I want to take the exam. It's okay. You could do 2 months ahead. But put the line in the sand and then study up to that point. Like take my class and at your time, like on Saturdays when you're free or in the evenings, look through the videos and learn, and then take the quizzes as you go along. It's an entire effort here to get you to understand the handbook. By the way, what I do with my my chart here, the way I teach it, I actually teach it from organization. I teach the handbook inside out. Chapter 7 is the organizational process project enabling processes. Your agreement processes are here. Chapter 6. Chapter 5 is your technical management processes. I have them here. And then Chapter 4 is your technical processes. So when I teach this course, I start at lifecycle model management for Chapter 7, and then I go through all the processes inside out and end at the disposal process. So that's how we get through all 31 processes, but it makes sense because I'm putting it in a contextual alignment here. So sign up for my course. It's at my website. You go there, purchase it, and I send you an email. And just like I did for this one, free one, but this one will say, hey, go into our Canvas website. You're good to go. All right, so those are the key elements: knowledge, experience, which is your application, and your education's your application, and knowledge, which is the exam that you need to take. Which one's right for you? It's really up to you. Are you new, just starting? ASEP. You need to pass the exam. Have you been at it for 5 to 10 years and practicing? Maybe CSEP's good to go. You have to pass the exam. If you've been an engineer for 20 years, 25 years, and you're a leader, then maybe ESEP is the way to go. These show you the key elements for each one from a knowledge, education, experience, and leadership standpoint. How long does this take to be certified? Well, look, you got to do your application. So how long will it take you to do your application? Remember, it takes time. And you got to submit your form via email and then pay the fee. And then INCOSE receives that, they look at it, about 2 weeks, they'll turn it around. And then they say, okay, now your references have to come through. And once that happens, INCOSE receives those references, line them up with your application, and then you schedule the exam, take the exam. How long does that take? Now you can parallel some of these. That may save you a little bit of time, but in the end, they still need to look at all that together in order to send you things. INCOSE estimates about 200 days, so several months for you to get this through. Now, using my method and trying to get it, you might be able to really make it a lot faster. If your application's right when you first give it to them, and you do that exam first, study for the exam in a few weeks, let your references do their thing, but you're studying for the exam, take the exam, pass it, and then your references come through, boom, you're done in less than 200 days, hopefully. Now there's one more aspect I want to hit, and that is certification renewal. For ASEP, you need every 5 years, you need to maintain your INCOSE membership and have enough PDUs, 120. And the same with CSEP, except it's 3 years. Now, what it takes to get that 120 is quite extensive. You're a member, so you get 5 credits right there for each year. So that's 15 credits. If you attend an INCOSE chapter, you get a PDU every hour that you attend. So that's really good. Also, you may go to a conference. You get a PDU for every hour. So a conference is a good, week or something. That's 40, 50 hours right there for a PDU. Or you may actually participate in a technical society, like join IEEE, join the things, or INCOSE, become part of the board of your local chapter. Every hour you spend on there becomes part of this. By the way, if you have so many, if you do something like that, you'll probably have more than 120. You can carry 30 over to the next time you need to do that. You can write a book too. That's pretty good. And you get some, a few credits for that. And your job, like if you do patent or you're leading an organization in system engineering certifications or other things, volunteering for activities in an organization dealing with engineering and science, there are all ways you can get PDUs. My suggestion, download from the certification your Renew material and put it in a Google Doc and access it every time you need to in order to fill out the application. You do not want to wait 3 years into this and go, oh my God, do I have enough? Oh, I better go check. I'll look at my emails. Oh, here's something I did on the weekend. What did I do? Did I pay for that? I better look at my checkbook. So really, just write it all down as you go along. Believe me, much easier. By the way, a lot of this information came from the INCOSE website. You can go there and look at the way they present it as well. But I appreciate your time. You can contact me at INCOSEinfo@SEscholar.com, And of course, certification office at INCOSE, certification at incose.org if you have any questions. And of course, go to the INCOSE org certification area if you can. Be sure to utilize my Canvas that I provided you. Not only do I give you application help where you can see my application if you're interested in my sample emails, but I also have some sample quiz forms. Like you can go in, it's 5 questions. You can see what it's like. I really want you to get into this try before you buy type thing. The video that you're watching now is very similar to the videos that I do for the classes. And the quiz will be very similar to the ones that you'll see. So you'll find that there's a lot of good information here, especially the experience and testimonies. Also, if you go to where I talk about getting the handbook and taking the quizzes, I also give you the ability to download my my actual study guide that I did for version 4, and you may find that thing just as a thank you. All right. Now, the other things that you may want to do is also, if you buy my course, put in SE-rules, because that's kind of a thank you. You'll get $50 off of the price, and you may find that helpful. Again, if you have any questions, send me an email at info@sescholar.com. We'll answer what we can. We appreciate your time. Hopefully you'll join me in class 2 if you sign up for my lectures, and from there we're going to start the handbook and go through this monstrous diagram. By the end of, believe me, at the end of 7 classes, this diagram will make total sense to you, and it really will help with your exam. Okay, thank you again for being here. Hopefully we'll see you online.